My dear countrymen, Assalamu alaikum. I am speaking to you tonight under the threat of war in Kashmir, which is being forced on us by India. The exchange of desultory fire, which had been going on for months across the ceasefire line in Jammu and Kashmir, has now assumed a grimmer aspect. In certain sectors, the armies of two countries have clashed. Failing to suppress the freedom fighters in the occupied territory of Jammu and Kashmir, India has embarked on a course of aggression across the ceasefire line. Indian artillery firing across the border on August 23rd hurled several shells into village Awan of Gujarat district, destroying houses and killing 20 innocent people and injuring another 15. This was preceded by persistent violations of the ceasefire line, a glaring example of which was the reoccupation of 3 vacant posts on our side of the ceasefire line in Kargil sector. It is significant that this forcible reoccupation of the posts came within hours of the threat of force extended by the Indian Prime Minister in a public address in Delhi. The Indian Defence Minister later confessed in Parliament whenever India had found it necessary to cross the ceasefire line to defend it, she had done so, and I have no doubt we are ready to do so again. This readiness to use force in defiance of international agreements were further demonstrated by fresh incursions in the Poonch-Uri sector. These blatant acts of aggression cannot and shall not be allowed to go unchallenged. The world might well ask why the Indians are so anxious to precipitate this war. The answer is simple. The Indian rulers find that their adventure in imperialism, which started with the subjugation of Junagadh and Hyderabad and later brought Goa under their occupation, is in serious jeopardy in Kashmir. The people of Jammu and Kashmir, who had been living under Indian colonial oppression, have risen in open revolt. The Indian attempt to dismiss this popular uprising as the work of some infiltrators from across the ceasefire line is a pathetic attempt at deluding the world and will deceive no one who is even vaguely familiar with the history of freedom movement in Indian occupied Kashmir. The Kashmiris first rose in revolt against the Dogra tyranny as early as 1931. This was followed by the Quit Kashmir movement of 1946 and the open rebellion of 1947 when parts of Kashmir broke away from Srinagar. There were large-scale disturbances in 1953 when Sheikh Abdullah was dismissed and imprisoned. 5 years later, on February 8, 1958, there were another outbreak of popular insurgents and the rearrest of Sheikh Abdullah. Again in 1963, the state was rocked by a rebellion touched off by the theft of the holy relic. For months, the administration was virtually paralyzed, and according to independent observers, an incredible drama of religious and political rebellion was witnessed throughout the state. Again in May this year, the people of Jammu and Kashmir rose against Indian authority in violent demonstration when Sheikh Abdullah was rearrested after a brief reprieve. Scores of people were killed, hundreds wounded, and thousands detained. To prevent the world from knowing details of people's movements, 16 Kashmiri newspapers were closed down. The present revolt comes as a final culmination of a brave and determined struggle to rid Jammu and Kashmir of the Indian stranglehold. On August 8th, the Voice of Kashmir announced the formation of a revolutionary council and the setting up of a national government. Fighting broke out in all parts of the state, and clashes between the patriots and the Indian occupation forces took place right in the heart of Srinagar. Since then, bands of freedom fighters have been valiantly defying the Indian occupation army, which has let loose a reign of terror against the local population. It has gone to the extent of setting fire to whole villages and shooting indiscriminately innocent men, women, and children fleeing from the flames. The cruel burning of Batmalu in Srinagar with its Muslim inhabitants will sear the conscience of the world. The heart of everyone who holds the cause of freedom dear is filled with respect and admiration for the valor of the people of Jammu and Kashmir. The successes achieved by the freedom fighters have been striking, and their heroic deeds will be a source of inspiration to all those engaged in the struggle for freedom in different parts of the world. The torch of freedom lit by these patriots has been carried from village to village and city to city. There has been a natural and spontaneous outburst of sympathy and support for the people of Jammu and Kashmir throughout the world. Responsible world opinion has urged upon Indian leadership to honor their commitment to the United Nations to hold a free and fair plebiscite in Kashmir. When the popular revolt broke out on the 8th of August, Indian leaders came out with a long wail that the ceasefire line had been violated. Their sudden concern for the ceasefire line was nothing more than an attempt to divert world attention from the moral basis of Kashmir dispute. Soon, however, the Indians revealed themselves in their true color by repeatedly transgressing the ceasefire line and occupying certain isolated positions in Azad Kashmir territory. The Indian leaders and the Indian press have been proudly announcing that India has crossed the ceasefire line. So much for Indian respect for the ceasefire line. How can she blame anyone from Azad Kashmir, or for that matter from any part of Pakistan, to go to the assistance of these brave people in Jammu and Kashmir who are locked in a life and death struggle against the brutal occupation forces of India? India blames us for supporting these valiant fighters against Indian army, Indian tyranny. We are doing no more than what we have always pledged to do, which is to support the people of Kashmir in exercising their right of self-determination as pledged to them by the United Nations, Pakistan as well as India. India has dishonored her pledge. Pakistan shall honor it. Indian policy towards our neighbors, especially towards Pakistan and Kashmir, has from the very beginning been set on a collision course. The present conflict in Kashmir is the inevitable outcome of that policy. She alone will be responsible for the consequences that are bound to follow. The people of Jammu and Kashmir will have the support of all those who believe in the freedom of man. Sheer physical force cannot break the spirit of a brave and determined people. If might and power could determine the fate of nations, no country in Africa and in Asia would be free today. India's history is replete with broken pledges. A recent example of our disregard for the sanctity of international commitment is our last-minute decision to call off the ministerial talks on Run of Kutch agreement. The provision for these talks were included in the agreement at India's insistence, yet she chose not to honor it on the spurious ground that these talks were unlikely to yield any results. Even personal undertakings lose their sanctity with Indian leadership if expediency so demands. In a recent statement to a foreign correspondent, the Prime Minister of India claimed that during his meeting with me in Karachi on 12th of October 1964, he had told me that India was not going to change its position on Kashmir, and that if I wanted to improve relations between the two countries, we ought to tackle other problems one by one. To put the record straight, I would like Mr. Shastri to recall that when I told him that the biggest obstacle in the Indo-Pakistan relation was the question of Kashmir, he readily conceded that the issue needed to be resolved, but that he did not think himself strong enough to carry it through with his people at that moment. I told him that as Prime Minister of India, it was his duty to build public opinion in favor of a satisfactory solution. He might be criticized for it by some elements, but the bulk of the Indian people would thank him for relieving them of a great anxiety. While agreeing with me, he pleaded for time. But instead of using time to build up public opinion, he allowed himself to be forced into making an ill-conceived attempt to integrate Kashmir with India through some constitutional device which has neither any moral validity nor any legal force in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. As to the other problems which Mr. Shastri wanted to be tackled one by one, I would like him to follow the course of eviction. Eviction of innocent Muslims from the Indian states adjoining East Pakistan since our meeting. I told him that this inhuman expulsion of Indian citizens from their homes merely because they happen to be Muslims must stop. He agreed and promised to let me know how soon a discussion on this subject could be arranged. While a meeting still remains of effect, the eviction of innocent people continues in a ruthless and planned manner. Since our meeting in October, more than 75,000 people have been thrown out of their homes and pushed into East Pakistan, bringing the total number of evictees to more than 5 lakhs. The patience and restraints which we have imposed on ourselves in the interest of peace in this area has been misunderstood by India. The sense of discipline shown by our people springs from their faith and ability to defend their country. In this supreme hour of their trial, the people of Pakistan will rise like one man and give a befitting reply to Indian aggression. Fellow countrymen, we are faced today with 2 challenges, one no less grave than the other. The first challenge is posed by India's hostility which has been mounting ever since she started receiving massive arms aid from some of our friends and allies. We had warned our friends time and time again that this aid would not be used against China, but against Pakistan. This has come to pass. The second is the challenge of our self-reliance. We can turn both these challenges into an opportunity to release the creative energies of our people, bringing out qualities of resourcefulness and dedication. It is in times like these that nations fulfill their destinies. They survive by the strength of their faith and character. May God grant us the courage to face this trial with unity and determination. Ameen. Pakistan, Payandabad.